Welcome to the Future Finance Show, where we talk about
treasury management on Mars.
The creation thing is a big thing, and second is the personalization is a big thing. That's what we believe is the future. In order to do analytics, in addition to the transactional space, they always wrote the data twice. Once in their analytic tables and also in their transactional table. Now the point was, do I need that anymore?
Meet Franz Faerber. He is the co-founder of Everest Systems, building a new generation of ERP software from scratch. With over 25 years at SAP, he was the key architect behind SAP HANA, leading its design and development, and led major big data innovations with SAP Vora and SAP Data Hub.
What does it take to create great software?
So the question of such a provider like VR or the other big software provider is not functionality of applications anymore or building application. It's the ability to integrate them into integrated full-fledged processes and adapt them to the customer needs, right?
large data sets are not as near a big a concern as they were a decade ago. I mean, all we got to do is look at the size of these servers and the amount of data we're using for AI.
There's a base system which you manually have to develop. Then there are applications on top of that which you really can generate.
Especially in the startup space, you can't predict everything that's going to happen. You don't know what's coming down the pike. You just have to be resilient and able to deal with it and kind of roll with the punches.
What's your opening strategy when you join a brand new project or company?
Good question. Let me think.
Future Finance is brought to you by QFlow.ai, the strategic finance platform solving the toughest part of planning and analysis. B2B revenue. Align sales, marketing, and finance seamlessly. Speed up decision-making and lock in accountability with QFlow.ai. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Future Finance, where we talk about AI and technology and all the things exciting going on in our world today. I'm thrilled to be joined by my co-host, Glenn Hopper. Glenn, welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
Always fun to have you as a co-host. I miss it when I don't have you as my co-host on my other shows.
I'm going to start just crashing your other podcasts.
Alrighty, sounds good. Why don't you just crash them and we'll have it the Glenn and Paul show with guest.
Yeah.
So as everybody knows, my name is Paul Barnhurst, aka the FP&A guy. And this week we're thrilled to have with us a special guest. We have with us Franz Faerber. Franz, welcome to the show.
Welcome as well, and thanks for having me here.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you. So a little bit about his background. We're joined today by Franz. Let me tell you a little bit about him. He leads Everest's overall technology strategy, driving the architecture and product vision behind Everest's AI-native ERP platform. Everest is a new tool in the marketplace that is recently launched. Prior to that, Franz spent over 30 years in enterprise software leadership. He was the executive vice president of technology at SAP. He was the original architect and development lead of SAP HANA, the industry's most advanced in-memory database. He also served as head of SAP HANA development, managing large global teams across Germany, India, and China. His work laid the foundation for modern real-time enterprise platforms used by thousands of global organizations. So again, Franz, super excited to have you here and get to have a few minutes of your time to chat AI technology and what you're doing at Everest.
Great. Thank you.
I'm very much want to get into Everest, but I feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about HANA. Most finance leaders have heard of HANA, but maybe not the story behind it. And the way that HANA broke down the wall between transactional systems and analytics, that's something that obviously that finance leaders still wrestle with today. So Franz, I'd love to hear the vision that drove you and your team to tackle that problem back then, and maybe like what lessons from that experience can still apply to leaders today trying to bring real-time data into finance. And I guess maybe if you could give a little bit of background, if I'm not mistaken, HANA is it's a translytic database. Is that the best way to describe it?
Exactly, right? It's a combination of a transactional and analytic database, right? And you can call it translytic. It came from the idea of having data in memory at that point in time when we didn't have so much memory in the late 28, 27, right? 29. And there the idea is, what can you do if you have all the data in memory and which operations can you do there. We came mainly from the analytics space. We integrated into the warehousing system there in SAP. And then in the cooperation with the Hasso-Plattner Institute, which is a university in Potsdam, there we had the idea and saying, can we use the same technology also as a transactional database for the flagship product of SAP, which is the ERP system? And then, the idea behind that and the thinking model was behind that. Let's assume the operational cost, the cost of a database is zero, because everything is in memory. Of course, that's not true, but it's a nice thinking model. If it's zero, what can you do? What can you do with unlimited speed in such a system? And that's where we drove all these innovations out of that. One is the technology side, but especially it was also, what can we do with unlimited speed in an ERP, in a transactional system, in an analytic system, and what new stuff can we build?
And it was really, I mean, a foundational shift. And I know that's been around a while, but are there still thoughts and thinking today that's you kind of learn from that and still apply that same approach with what you're doing at Everest and the way that finance leaders should think about it as well?
Yeah, no, first of all, right, it is not expensive anymore to have huge amount of data, right? This was a story from yesterday. You can fix it. You can solve the problem, right? If somebody comes and saying, oh, I have billions of data sets and now we have a problem to do so, that is nonsense, right? It depends on which technology you want to use. I think that's one thing. The second is what I've learned for myself from that was mainly, if you have such a technology, whatever it is it main memory, is it whatever we do currently in Everest, think that through. What does it mean? What can you do with it if you go to the extreme and think in extremes and try to achieve at the limit of what this technology gives you? I think that's the main learning I had out of that.
That's pretty amazing. I know, I love the premise you shared of, what would we do if, we could be as fast as we wanted and it was all free?
Exactly.
Because that's really how you push the boundaries, is thinking outside the box.
Exactly. And then the question was, right, do you need, and in these systems, what the applications did is, in order to do analytics, in addition to the transactional space, they always wrote the data twice, right? Once in their analytic tables and also in their transactional tables, because otherwise you didn't get the performance. Now the point was, do I need that anymore, right? If you have unlimited speed, you can do that all with your transactional tables and your transactional storage, which makes the application so much faster and so much simpler, right? You can throw huge amount of code, you can throw away, and you have the same performance on transactional data structure. I think that was a big shift and made it then much, much easier to maintain the application, to extend them, and so on. I think that was a big shift.
Yeah, no, it definitely was. I think everybody has heard of, SAP HANA, and it definitely was a shift in the way we thought. And I'm sure you've brought some of that to Everest along with other things. As you mentioned, it's much easier now from a cost standpoint, right? Large data sets are not as near a big a concern as they were a decade ago, 15 years ago. I mean, all we got to do is look at the size of these servers and the amount of data we're using for AI, right? It's amazing how far we've come.
Yeah, and I think that was also a point when we said, right, what happens now, and that is one of our technology which we develop in Everest, right? What happens now if the data is so fast that you can rethink things which you would not have even thought before 15 years ago, and that's what we call our sandboxing technology, right? If you can even do very, very complex statements against your database, even on huge amount of data, then you can build a different system. And one thing which we did is what we call our live sandboxing. There, what we are saying is we are giving every user who is logging onto the system, if the user wants, we are giving the same set of huge amount of tables privately, and then we mix in a SQL statement the private tables and the standard tables together in one big SQL statement, and the database can do that. Nobody would come to that idea 10 years ago in saying this can scale, right?
I'm curious. I know at the end of your time before you started at Everest, you took a leave from SAP for about 8 months before starting Everest. When you did that, did you know you were going to be starting a company? Was that kind of the plan when you took that leave? Or was it just, hey, it's time for a break, let me figure out what's next? Kind of walk through what you did during that time.
Yeah, it was exactly the second one, right? I was 26 years in SAP and I thought, there's two options for myself, right? Either I retire in SAP and I do my work was interesting enough, or I want to do something different. I want to have a change, right? And this was absolutely the time for a change. Then I thought I will do 6 months nothing and just sitting in the garden. And then really 3 weeks later, I came into contact with our current main investor, with Sutter Hill. And then the garden leave, the official garden leave was over, right? When we started to build Everest. So it was in reality it was a 3 weeks garden leave, right? And then I left the garden.
So the garden didn't get near the attention you originally planned.
No, but no, that was not. It was great, right? But it was just 3 weeks.
Well, I hope you rested well for those 3 weeks because as the founder of a new ERP startup, you're not gonna rest for a while.
That's that's really true, right? But it's a lot of fun and it's super exciting. And I would never have learned what I learned the last 5 years.
Well, maybe after you have your big exit, you'll get to spend all that time in the garden.
Yeah, the garden is waiting, but look at the garden, how it looks like it also needs me now, right? At some point in time.
So I'm curious, what motivated you? Obviously, you met the investor, your founders. You jumped into this quite quickly after a 3-week break. So what motivated you and your co-founders to start Everest Systems? What was the thinking that we needed a new ERP tool in this space?
Yeah, first of all, if you work in an ERP company for such a long time, yeah, you're sitting with your friends, with your colleagues in the coffee corner and always debate what could be better. Why is it so? Why is it not great and not great enough? And no, all the things. A lot of ideas are always. Uh, and of course, an ERP system is not a system which normally customers love, right? If you go to ERP users, they don't hug you and saying you are so great and you are the greatest that you built our ERP system. That's not happening, right? And then after these 3 weeks, right, when we discussed with the investors and said, hey, maybe we build a new one from scratch. If you are really full blood developer and a full blood ERP guys and you don't use this opportunity, then it's really time to retire, right? Because there's a once in a life opportunity to build one of the biggest systems, software systems, which are out there in the world, and you have the opportunity to build it from scratch. What your guys, which you admire in SAP, did 45, 50 years ago, cannot say no, right? It's not possible, right? There is no chance. There was no chance to say no. Of course, I asked my family if they agree, but they knew if they don't agree, I would be very unhappy. So yeah, there was no chance to say no.
Love it. And as Glenn once said, you mentioned nobody loves their ERP, right? You don't generally say people going around saying, wow, I love my ERP. As Glenn put it, there's two things that will get a CFO fired: fraud and telling a CEO that he wants to do an ERP implementation.
Exactly. Exactly. And we always say also that we said already in SAP, and we also say it now, the CFO has ever been fired to choose SAP. If you choose another ERP, you have a high chance. And that was great when being in SAP. And it's now a little bit of a struggle when you are not in SAP, right?
Exactly. Finance has been conservative. You select the IBM, you select the SAP, the Oracle. That's the safe pick.
Yes, exactly.
There is a whole slew of new ERPs coming into the market right now. And the interesting thing, and Paul, I want you to note, it's been like, what, 11 minutes since we started, and I'm finally just now bringing up AI, but you knew I was going to get here. But I think about the battleships, the SAPs, the Oracles, the big systems that have been around forever, and how hard it would be at a company or just a product of that size. And because of how complex the implementations are and how careful they have to be with implementing new features into those products. Now, though, you're the nimble speedboat. I know you started this before generative AI really kicked in, but I'm wondering how the rise of generative AI has influenced the way that you've built and modified Everest Systems, and what kind of changes you've had since the onset and since everybody's talking about generative AI right now and we're seeing the possibility around it.
Exactly what you said. We started in 2020, beginning 2020, a little bit earlier, thinking about that there was no generative AI there, so we started without it. The point is, what is the fundamental change in our direction? At that point in time, we believed that it takes 10, 15, maybe 20 years to be on the level as an SAP, right? Because, looking at what they have built the last 50 years on an application, on the stack, on the functionality, that's the reason why there are not so many new ERPs there. That is changing super dramatically now with generative AI. And our approach is now twofold, right? No CFO would ever go to a generated accounting system and put his head on the table and saying, "I believe that a generated accounting system lets me sleep well in the night." That's not working, right? And nobody would do that. Therefore, we said there's a base system which you manually have to develop, and then there are applications on top of that which you really can generate. Of course, even when developing an accounting system, right? AI can help you. These Winsors and these Codiums, all these guys can help you to build faster. But when you really want to generate complete applications, then we do it on top of the existing modules, right? Therefore, we always have a really working transactional system, and on top of this application can be generated. Now we believe that we can be on the same level in 5 years instead of 50. I think that's a big change of how the way generative AI really helps us.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge from speed to market, cost, everything.
You're spot on. And I just was thinking, you posted recently on LinkedIn, great software isn't about geography. It can come from anywhere in the world. But I'm thinking now with vibe coding, it's geography, it's faster, it's more people able to do it. So with what you were saying, I mean, in your opinion, considering the environment we're in now, what does it take to create great software with all things considered, that you can have people anywhere in the world doing it? People are doing it with vibe coding, a lot more productive around it and all that.
Ever feel like your go-to-market teams and finance speak different languages? This misalignment is a breeding ground for failure, impairing the predictive power of forecasts and delaying decisions that drive efficient growth. It's not for lack of trying, but getting all the data in one place doesn't mean you've gotten everyone on the same page. Meet QFlow.ai, the strategic finance platform purpose-built to solve the toughest part of planning and analysis, B2B revenue. QFlow quickly integrates key data from your go-to-market stack and accounting platform, then handles all the data prep and normalization under the hood. It automatically assembles your go-to-market stacks, makes segmented scenario planning a breeze, and closes the planning loop. Create airtight alignment, improve decision latency, and ensure accountability across the team.
I assume, and we assume that, as it is, as you said, it's so easy to develop applications or software that there will be an inflation of these applications. Everybody will be able to do so, right? When you look at the amount of people, the sheer amount of people who can now develop, it's just a factor of, 10 to 100 bigger than it was 5 years ago, right? And everybody everywhere can kind of generate these applications. Therefore, there will be massive amount of applications in all areas. So the question of such a provider like we are, or the other big software provider, is not functionality of applications anymore or building application. It's the ability, integrated, full-fledged processes, and adapt them to the customer needs, right? We will see much more kind of personalized applications. We will see much more need for integrations, because if you have 10,000 different applications which you have to integrate, the cost is higher than having one provider or 5 provider as in the past. So this integration thing is a big thing. And second is the personalization is a big thing. That's what we believe is the future. It's not about application functionality anymore, because that's for free.
I'm wondering, with all this, what has it done to your dev cycle and your release cycle? And very different, I would imagine, from SAP on how often you're rolling out updates. What does it look like, your typical sprints and in QA and test and release? How does all that go?
First of all, of course, it's kind of daily these days. Where we do the releases. Now we've deliver now in November the first version of a really sophisticated inventory management, where I normally would say it takes 3 years to development. We now developed it without writing a single line of code, no single line of code in 4.5 months. And now we are able to deliver the first version, a complete inventory management system, right? That's a change.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
It's kind of mind blowing to think, right? Not a single line of code, 4.5 months compared to 3 years.
This is unbelievable change, right? For an old software dinosaur like me, this is just, wow. This is so mind blowing, right? That you're saying, wow, it's a dream.
When you're doing this, we kind of skipped over it because I did want to talk about HANA at the beginning, but we haven't really talked about Everest for your product now, and you're constantly rolling out new features and new modules. When you're going to market, what is your competitive differentiator, and what is the feature set and everything that is going to make Office of the CFO when they see they have a lot of options now? They've got the old standbys, and then they've got a bunch of upstart ones and a bunch of AI first ones. What is Everest bringing to the market that's unique?
When you operate an ERP system, or when you implement an ERP system, the software costs are normally for a little bit bigger projects are maybe 1/3 to 1/5 of the overall cost. The main costs are integration, are implementation, are operating the stuff, and so on. And there we have a really big breakthrough with our technology, with our sandboxing technology, that it's much, much easier to operate the system, and you need a much smaller landscape with us. That's one of the big changes. We are implementing natively the new business models, right? Especially subscription. That's a big differentiator. And then this extensibility and this possibility to build new application also for the customers, and doing the extensions and not being forced to buy and adapt and configure all these solutions anymore. That's also a big thing. So at the end, operations, new functionality, and unlimited functionality of AI.
As you're building this out, obviously you're going to keep making it more and more robust, and it's going to have more built-in features. But from the beginning, since you can't do everything all at once, was there a big focus on integration with existing finance tech stack, CRM and bill payment and other tools? Is that a big part of the rollout, is people can attach other systems and the communication and passing data in between them?
Of course, you cannot believe that you go to our new customers and they just using Everest, right? The bad luck, that's not the case. You have to integrate a lot. But what you learn when you're doing an ERP system, the core of every ERP system is accounting, right? First of all, you have to do accounting. If you are not a system of records, you are not a real ERP system. You are an extension of another system, and then you build around the accounting. That's kind of what all these successful bigger systems started with. Accounting, or at least as a second application when you look at Workday. And then you have to integrate in the first shot. Yes, integration is one of the key topics.
So I think about how much the market is clamoring for. We want to be able to chat with our data. We want to be able to tie in. And I thought I was actually pretty impressed. I've only had a chance to mess around with it a little bit, but that NetSuite rolled out connectors with an MCP server. I thought that was a really smart way to do it, because that way they're almost at arm's length. I mean, they're letting it come in, but they're giving it the functionality that instead of integrating it directly into the software, they're doing that. Are you right now, on your roadmap or in the existing product, are you integrating generative AI directly in, or do you think you'll take a similar approach where we're going to give you the APIs and the connectors and you can bolt on?
We are doing both. We have, of course, AI integrated everywhere. That's clear. But especially also we are using our own APIs as MCP or as direct APIs in our generation of new applications, right? There we are not using just MCP. We are also really having a process which we call AI Specify, where we are enabling ourselves, but also our customers, to specify applications with the help of AI, and then generating all the stuff automatically out of it. And of course, there we use all this technology you mentioned, MCP and APIs and whatever is available, agent technology, everything. It's clear.
It's amazing to talk to you, Franz, and just people who are tackling the ERP space, because it, for the longest time, felt like nobody would touch it, right? Too big. It's like, I ain't going there. Too deep pockets from SAP and Oracle, and too long of a cycle. And now we're seeing a fresh crop of people attacking it in different ways. And I know you guys are coming after it, and it's exciting because it's an area that I think has been needing innovation. What's your thoughts on that? How do you see kinda, the need for innovation in this space kinda compared to the established players?
I think when we speak with customers and companies, they love our approach. They love that there is at least they have a choice now, right? That they have a choice and saying, okay, we can use something fresh. They were waiting for somebody who is at least peaking a little bit the bigger guys and saying, okay, yeah, they should not fall in sleep. Of course, doing then the decision of changing the ERP is a big one, right? This is more than just being happy that there's a competitor out there, but you know, that is, people are so happy about seeing something different. They are just saying, "Hey, it's so great that you guys are trying that." Um, to be honest, when we started the journey, all of my friends and colleagues said, "You are totally crazy. Like, look at where you are. It will take 20 years, and you will not survive that." And everybody said that, right? And now we are there, and we have a solid system, and customers are super.
Love it, and you're not the first person that I've heard say that from one of these founders of the ERP space. A lot of people are like, "You sure that's what you wanna do? How about tackling this or that problem? You really wanna go after the full ERP?" So yeah, we hear that a lot. We've definitely heard that before. And, changing gears here a little bit, you recently shared a quote on LinkedIn that I like, and I just love to get you to elaborate a little bit on it. You said, "You can't build momentum if you're trying to make everyone happy. A clear vision matters more than consensus." So could you elaborate a little bit on that?
When you have a vision or a mission which you want to achieve, then the point is not that everybody agrees to that. Because if everybody would agree to that, somebody would have already done it, right? And that's clear. You have to be controversial, especially also in technology, but also in the way to go. And when I look into our history, of course, there was a lot of discussion. Oh, should we now go broader? Should we now build multiple applications? Does the sandboxing really work? How fast do we have to go to AI? At the end, most people are willing to follow a vision if it's clear, if you're doing that, if you are really convinced on that, if you're heading forward, right? What people don't want is that you by yourself don't know in which direction you want to go. If you're really convinced, if you really believe in that, if you can that transport to the people, then people are willing to follow your path and giving you credit, even if they don't believe it. And therefore, it's people don't look for somebody who is pleasing them. People want to follow a vision and want to be convinced of a vision and uh, not pleasing people. Nobody likes that.
I agree with you there. So one last question, then we're gonna move into our AI section, and we'll, surprise you a little bit there. But so I noticed you mentioned on LinkedIn all of your family plays chess. You're big chess players. So what is the love about chess? How did that come about that everybody in the family is big chess players?
My son started first. I was playing a little bit. My son started first, and he really was deep in chess. And then, of course, he convinced all my wife and then all the siblings, and he became really good and was so fascinated. And the problem is now he is not willing to play with me anymore because he says, my old guy is not good enough anymore, and it is not fun to play. But it is really an amazing game. And people believe if you watch a game, it is boring. But if you are deep in that, it is like a soccer game or a football game, right? You are so deep in, and you're sweating because it's getting so exciting, and you're waiting for the next move. You cannot believe that in the chess game you are sweating when you watch it, right? Therefore, I really like it, and I'm a super fan of it.
It's funny you say that. As someone who's watching the Vuelta a España, professional cycling right now, that has gotta be the most boring thing in the world to most people, but I get the same thing from it. I'm terrible at chess, but I know what you're talking about. If you ride bikes, you understand what they're going through on the bike racing, and if you play chess, you get it better with what they're going through on that. So I love that.
It's funny how that works. All right, so we're gonna move into our get to know you a little better section, where what we did is we fed your bio, your LinkedIn profile, whatever it could find on the web, the questions we came up with today, and we asked it to come up with some personal, kind of fun, little bit quirky questions. So AI came up with 25. I use one method, Glenn uses a different method. So my method is you can pick a number between 1 and 25, or the random number generator can pick a number between 1 and 25. It will ask you that question. So which one do you want?
I would like to choose 13.
13. All right. I haven't even looked at these questions, so sometimes they're pretty bad. I like this one. In chess, you always need an opening strategy. What's your opening strategy when you join a brand new project or company?
Good question. Let me think. Let me think a moment. First of all, I want to speak with experts in a project. That's the opening thing. I want to listen to people who really understand it. Because the worst thing which I have seen from people, you throw a problem at them and they immediately want to solve it and don't want to understand it. And I think that's my opening always. I really want to understand it. And before I answer, I have to understand it. I have to speak with people. I have to look into literature. And now with AI, right? Going to AI, it's really easy to learn a lot about that, and that would be my opening always, learning first before answering.
What that reminds me of is, if you ever read, there's a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of the things he says is seek first to understand, then to be understood. And it's kind of what you're going to, right? You're showing that to be highly effective, you first need to talk to the experts and understand it before you can come up with a strategy or decide what to do next.
Absolutely.
All right, Glenn, over to you.
All right. So first off, which model came up with these questions this week? They're pretty good. Sometimes they're really weird.
ChatGPT.
All right.
It's
Yeah,
the 5.
ChatGPT did.
5.
Yeah. So all right, kudos for 5. Everybody's knocking it, but I like these questions.
I change my question a little bit every time. I'm sure I can go back and find them, but I should record them. So
Okay, so let's see. So on my approach, I just take the human out of the loop completely and turn it completely over to the AI. And since AI created them, I just load them in and say, and you just tell it to pick a random one. So let me do that. Okay, I like this one. As someone, I read a lot more fiction than I do nonfiction. So I like this question. What's your favorite non-tech book that you think has secretly made you a better technologist? So I'm guessing this would be a fiction book, or it could be nonfiction, but something that is not technical related, that is transferred into making you a better technologist. We'll go, or movie even, maybe we could go.
book or movie, but what's something that's non-tech that's helped you? There we go.
Yeah, I think from the movie there's a book in Germany called Homo Faber. That's also a movie. I don't know if you have seen that. That's maybe that's from a German author. And there, what I've learned there is things can really change your life in a way which you don't foresee, and you nevertheless have to react on that in a way which is appropriate, right? That was a story when a father had a relationship with his daughter, and not knowing about that and how they dealt with that, and then they figured out, really made me think of what things can happen in your life which you cannot foresee, and how do you with that, and then being really robust on bad things which can happen to you, and saying, hey, we have to deal with those situations in the world. And that's the same in the company, in the technical world, right? Especially when you start a company, there are so many different things which you don't foresee, which are ugly, which are bad, which are good, which depress you on the day you go home and saying, oh, I will stop the thing. No chance that I will continue. And the most important thing is that you deal with it and come out of it. I think that's my learning out of that.
That's great, and it reminds me of Anti-Fragile, right? Like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and getting the strength from that. And then you can't, especially in the startup space, you can't predict everything that's gonna happen. You don't know what's coming down the pike. You just have to be resilient and able to deal with it and kind of roll with the punches. So that's great. Yeah, perfect answer.
All righty. Well, Franz, thank you so much for carving out, some time with us today. We've really enjoyed chatting with you. We wish you the best with Everest Systems. We know it's an exciting time and it's a challenging market, but people have been clamoring for a new ERP for a while now. I mean, I know people are getting really excited to see this space start to heat up and, seeing what AI can do. And so love that you've tackled this, that you decided, hey, I want to do that big project. We wish you the best of luck, and we're excited to see you grow in the future and watch Everest Systems grow and develop. So thanks for carving out 30 minutes for us today.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for the opportunity to speak with you. It was a real pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Fran.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to the Future Finance Show, and thanks to our sponsor, QFlow.ai. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice. And may your robot overlords be with you.